The shields around Valara Station flickered like a dying candle. Commander Heian watched the tactical display with tired eyes. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of constant attacks, 3 weeks of sending distress signals into the void, 3 weeks of watching his defensive grid crumble piece by piece. The numbers told a story no one wanted to hear. Shield strength at 12%. Food supplies for 7 more days. Ammunition reserves critical. And the Krethic fleet circling like predators waiting for the kill. Heian was Altheon, a species known for their tactical brilliance and unwavering honor. His feathers, once bright blue, had dulled to gray from stress. He had commanded defensive positions in 4 major conflicts, earned medals, saved thousands. But this was different. This was a siege with no relief coming. High Command had sent one message 2 weeks ago, brief and cold. Strategic priorities required redeployment. Valara Station was too far, too exposed, too costly to save. They were on their own. 847 souls lived on this station. Researchers, families, engineers, civilians from 12 different species. They had come here to study the dying star, to push the boundaries of science, to build something meaningful in the darkness of space. Now they huddled in the central habitat ring, listening to explosions echo through the hull, watching their defenders die one by one. Dr. Murray worked in the medical bay, treating wounded as they came in. She was human, young, barely 30 years old. Her black hair was tied back in a practical knot, her hands steady despite the fear in her chest. She had joined the station 6 months ago to study exotic microorganisms in the star's corona. Simple research. Peaceful work. Now she was setting broken bones and closing plasma burns while the station shook around her. Another explosion rocked the medical bay. The lights flickered. A Thelian researcher cried out in pain as his injured arm was jostled. Murray steadied him, whispered soothing words, injected pain medication. She had learned to work through fear, to lock it away in a box and deal with it later. If there was a later, Ginho found her there an hour before the final assault. He was human too, an engineer, older than Murray by a decade. They had become friends over shared meals in the cafeteria, conversations about Earth, memories of home. He looked exhausted, covered in grease and burn marks from trying to keep the power systems running. Hyun is calling a meeting, Ginho said quietly. Senior staff. He's going to discuss surrender terms. Murray felt something cold settle in her stomach. Surrender to the Krethic. Everyone knew what that meant. The Krethic did not take prisoners for ransom. They took them for labor camps, for experimentation, for things worse than death. But what choice did they have? Die fighting or die slowly in Krethic hands? The meeting was brief. Heian stood at the head of the conference table, his posture straight despite everything. Around him sat the remaining department heads, the people who had kept the station running through hell. He spoke plainly. The shields would fail within hours. The Krethic would breach the hull. Resistance would only lead to more deaths. Perhaps if they surrendered, some would survive. Murray found her voice, surprised by how steady it sounded. We cannot surrender to them. You know what they do? We all know. Hyun met her eyes. There was pain there, and shame. I know, Doctor. But I also know that if we fight, everyone dies. At least this way, some might live. To suffer, Ginho said quietly. To wish they had died here. The room fell silent. What could anyone say? They were trapped between 2 horrors. Choosing which darkness to fall into, Hyun dismissed them after an hour of painful discussion. No decision made, just a terrible weight settling on everyone's shoulders. Murray walked through the corridors, seeing families huddled together, children holding their parents, species that had never met before, sitting side by side in shared fear. This was not how it was supposed to end. She found Ginho in the observation deck, staring at the stars. The Krethic fleet hung in the distance, dark shapes against the light of the dying sun. Earth is only 40 light-years away, Ginho said without looking at her. Did you know that? 40 light-years. So close. Murray stood beside him. Earth has a small fleet. Patrol ships, frigates. Even if they knew, even if they wanted to help, they could never get here in time.
I know.
Jinho said. I just wish, he trailed off. What was there to wish for? The alarm sounded 2 hours later. All hands to stations. Final assault incoming. Mireille and Jinho refused to hide in the shelters. They helped where they could, rerouting power, carrying ammunition, doing anything to feel useful. The defenders manned their posts with quiet courage. If this was the end, they would face it standing. Commander Hyun stood in the command center, watching the Krethik warships move into final attack formation. 12 ships against 1 dying station. His tactical display showed everything in cold, clinical detail. The weak points in their shields, the breaches already forming in the outer hull, the dwindling power reserves. He had fought many battles, won many victories, but this was not a battle. This was an execution. All stations, prepare for final defense, he announced over the station-wide channel. His voice did not shake. It has been an honor serving with you all. The Krethik ships began their approach. Weapons charging, engines burning bright. In the command center, officers gripped their stations. In the corridors, defenders checked their weapons. In the shelters, civilians held each other close. Everyone waited for the end. Then something impossible happened. Space itself seemed to tear open between the station and the Krethik fleet. A massive energy signature erupted from nowhere, a slip-space tear that made every sensor scream warnings. The tear expanded, growing larger, more violent than any jump point Heian had ever seen. The energy readings were off the scale, the size incomprehensible. What kind of ship could create a tear that large? The Krethik fleet stopped its approach. Confusion rippled through their communications. They had not detected any ships in the area. This made no sense. Then it came through. A ship. No, not just a ship. A monster. A leviathan. Over 2 kilometers of angular, scarred metal emerged from the tier like a predator stepping out of shadows. Weapon batteries lined its hull, point defense systems tracked in all directions. And its engines burned with power that made the Krethik warships look like toys. The hull bore scars from battles, and impacts and repairs that spoke of hard fighting across long distances. And on its side, in letters that gleamed even in the darkness of space, a name and designation, HMNV, Taizhou Human Merchant Navy Vessel. Taizhou, but this was no merchant ship. Silence filled the command center. Everyone stared at the tactical display, at the massive human warship that had appeared like something from a fever dream. Humans were not supposed to have ships like this. They were newcomers to the galaxy, barely established, their fleet consisting of small patrol craft and frigates. Where had this come from? Then a transmission cut through all frequencies. First in a language most species barely recognized, Human Korean, then translated smoothly to Galactic Standard. The voice was female, calm, carrying absolute confidence. Valara Station, this is the HMNV Taizhou. Hold position. Cavalry has arrived. In the command center, Heian felt something he had not felt in weeks. Hope. Fragile, almost painful. But real. The Krethik fleet had stopped moving entirely now. 12 warships faced 1 human dreadnought. On paper, the humans were outnumbered. On paper, this should be a simple fight. But as the Taizhou's weapons came online, as its fighters began launching from hangar bays, as its engines flared with power, everyone watching knew the truth. The Krethik had made a terrible mistake, and they were about to learn what it meant when humans came to war. The Krethik did not hesitate long. Their doctrine was built on aggression and overwhelming force. Warlord Dalit commanded the fleet from his flagship, a battle-scarred cruiser that had crushed 17 stations before Valara. He saw 1 human ship against 12 Krethik warships. The mathematics were simple. The outcome certain. He ordered the Alpha Strike. Every Krethik ship opened fire at once. Missiles streaked through space, plasma torpedoes glowing like angry stars. Railgun rounds accelerating to devastating speeds. Enough firepower to obliterate a station, all focused on the single human dreadnought. In the command center of Valara Station, he watched the display and felt his hope waver. No ship could survive that barrage. The humans had come to die with them, but the Taizhou did not try to dodge. It did not raise full shields and turtle defensively. Instead, it accelerated, directly toward the Krethic formation. Directly into the teeth of the attack, its point defense systems came alive. Hundreds of small turrets tracking, calculating, firing in precise bursts. Missiles exploded before reaching the hull. Torpedoes were intercepted and detonated harmlessly in space. Railgun rounds hit deflector shields and scattered. The Taizhou carved through the barrage like it was flying through rain, shields flickering but holding. Armor absorbing impacts that should have crippled it. Then it fired back. The main batteries spoke with voices of thunder. Rail cannons mounted along the spine of the ship launched projectiles at relativistic speeds. When they hit like the hammer of an angry god. The first Krethic cruiser took a round through its forward section and simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy tearing through armor, bulkheads, reactors in a straight line of destruction. The ship broke apart, atmosphere venting, fires blooming in the void. Plasma lances followed, superheated beams that carved through Krethic shields like they were paper. Metal glowed white-hot, then red, then buckled and melted. A destroyer tried to turn away and took a lance through its engine section. The reactor went critical. The ship became a small sun for 3 seconds before the explosion faded to debris. In the command center, nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. They watched a single human ship tear through the Krethic formation with brutal efficiency. The Taizhou moved wrong. Ships that size should not be able to maneuver like that. It made turns that should crush the crew under acceleration forces. Rolled and dove with precision that belonged to a fighter, not a dreadnought. How were the humans surviving those maneuvers? Ginho stood beside Mireille in the observation deck, both of them pressed against the window, watching the battle rage. Mireille was shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Pride, awe, horror at the sheer violence of it. This was what humanity had brought to the galaxy. They actually sent the reserve fleet, Ginho whispered. His voice was thick with emotion. They actually came. The Taizhou launched fighters. Small craft poured from its hangar bays, dozens of them moving in coordinated formations. They swept through the Krethic formation like angry insects, targeting weapons, batteries, engines, sensor arrays. And through the chaos of battle, the defenders of Valara Station could hear something impossible. The humans were laughing. Combat chatter leaked through comm channels. Human pilots joking, taunting, calling out targets with casual ease. One pilot screamed for Valara in Korean before ramming her damaged fighter into a Krethic command ship's bridge. The explosion was massive. The ship went dark, tumbling through space without guidance. This was not how galactic warfare worked. Species fought with discipline, with honor, with calculated risk. They did not laugh in the face of death. They did not sing while flying through explosions. But humans did. And the Krethic, who prided themselves on fearlessness, found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to welcome the chaos of battle. 40 minutes into the fight, half the Krethic fleet was destroyed or crippled. Burning hulks drifted through space. Escape pods launched in all directions. The formation that had besieged Valara Station for 3 weeks had been shattered by a single human ship in less than an hour. Warlord Dalit, his pride wounded more than his ship, attempted to retreat. His remaining vessels turned away, engines burning hot, trying to reach safe jump distance. But the humans had planned for this. Mines, dozens of them, deployed during the battle, now activated along the exit vectors. The first Krethic ship to reach them triggered a chain reaction. Explosions blossomed across the retreat path. A transmission came from the Taizhou, the same female voice. Calm and measured, speaking in galactic standard now. Krethic vessels. This is Captain Sunhee of the HMNV Taizhou. You have one opportunity to surrender. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. This is your only chance. Dalit's response was furious. transmitted on open channels for all to hear. He would never surrender to inferior species. He called for reinforcements from the nearest Krethik base. He promised that the humans would suffer for their arrogance. He swore by his warlord's oath that he would see the Taijo destroyed. The silence that followed his transmission was heavy. Then Captain Sun-hee spoke again. Her voice had not changed. Still calm, still measured, but something in it made everyone listening feel cold. Then you have chosen extinction. The Taijo shifted its position. Power began flowing through the ship in a way it had not during the entire battle. Every light on the hull dimmed. Energy was being drawn from everywhere, concentrated into a single system. A weapon that had not yet fired in the command center. Hyen's tactical display showed the energy buildup and could not calculate what was happening. The numbers were impossible. No ship should be able to generate that much power. No weapon should be able to channel that much energy. The spinal-mounted mass accelerator charged. It ran the entire length of the Taijo's 2-kilometer hull, a tunnel of magnetic coils and exotic matter containment. When it fired, the beam was visible from Valara Station, a streak of light that seemed to tear reality itself. The hypervelocity round traveled at a significant fraction of light-dash speed. It hit the first Krethik battleship and punched through. Straight through. Armor, shields, bulkheads, reactors, all of it. The ship did not explode. It simply had a hole through its center, perfectly straight, cauterized by the heat of passage. Then the secondary explosions started as systems failed and reactors lost containment. But the round did not stop. It continued through space, still traveling at incredible speed, and hit the second battleship in line. Same result. A hole, destruction, death. The round passed through the second ship and struck a third before finally losing cohesion and dispersing into space. 3 battleships destroyed in a single shot. The remaining Krethik vessels surrendered immediately. Weapons powered down. Shields dropped. White flags transmitted on all frequencies. The battle was over. In the observation deck, Marae felt her legs give out. She sat down hard, still staring at the stars, at the debris field that had been a fleet, at the human ship that hung in space like an avenging angel. Jinho sat beside her. Neither of them could speak. The Taijo began recovery operations. Shuttles launched toward Valara Station, broadcasting medical teams and engineers ready to help. The first shuttle docked at the main airlock. The bay doors opened. Human Marines stepped out, weapons secured, faces professional but kind. Behind them came medics, carrying supplies, engineers with repair equipment. Commander Heian met them personally. He stood at attention, his Althean military training taking over even in his exhaustion. A human officer approached, saluted, then extended a hand in the human gesture of greeting. Commander Heian. I am Lieutenant Kyung of the HMNV Taijo, Captain. Sunhei sends her regards and requests permission to bring all station personnel aboard for medical treatment and debriefing. Heian took the offered hand. Feeling the strength in the human's grip, permission granted. And Lieutenant, please convey my deepest gratitude to Captain Sunhei. Kyun smiled, tired but genuine. She knows, sir. She knows. As the evacuation began, as the wounded were carried to shuttles and families gathered their belongings, Heian received a private message. Direct line from Captain Sunhei. He found a quiet corner and accepted the transmission. The human captain's face appeared on his display. She was younger than he expected, maybe 40 in human years, with gray streaking her black hair and eyes that had seen too much war. But her expression was kind. Commander, we will discuss the full situation once you are aboard. But I need you to understand something now. The Krethik were not your real problem. They were scouts for something worse. Something that has been hunting humanity for 3 years. We destroyed a Devourer scout ship in this system before engaging the Krethik. It escaped. It observed our battle. And now it knows where you are. Heian felt his relief drain away, replaced by a new cold dread. What are the Devourers? Captain Sunny's expression hardened. your new nightmare, Commander, and humanity's old one. We have much to discuss. But first, let us get your people to safety. The station is too damaged to defend. Everyone comes with us." The transmission ended. Hyun stood in the quiet corner, processing what he had just learned. They had survived the siege, survived the Krethic. But something worse was coming. He looked out the viewport at the Taijo, at the human ship that had crossed 40 light-years to save them. Whatever these devourers were, humanity had been fighting them for 3 years, and humanity was still fighting. That had to mean something. That had to mean there was hope. He just hoped it was enough. Walking through the corridors of the Taijo felt like entering another world. Mireille followed the human crew member assigned as her guide, her eyes taking in everything. The corridors were wider than standard galactic designs built for humans who seemed to prefer space around them. The gravity was heavier, Earth standard, making her legs work harder with each step. Everything was built with redundancy. Backup systems visible along the walls, emergency stations every 20 meters. This ship was designed to take damage and keep fighting. They passed damage control teams working on repairs from the battle. Hull patches being welded, power conduits being rerouted, systems being tested and retested. The crew worked with mechanical efficiency. No wasted movement, no unnecessary conversation. These were people who had done this many times before. Too many times. Mireille and Jinho were among the first group brought aboard for medical evaluation. The Taijo's medical bay was massive, clearly designed to handle mass casualties. Human medics moved between beds, treating wounded crew members, and now the survivors from Valara Station. A Thelian child was crying while a human doctor set his broken arm, speaking softly in accented Thelian, promising it would be okay. After medical clearance, Mireille and Commander Heian were escorted to the bridge. They rode a lift that moved smooth and fast, then stepped onto the command deck. It was organized chaos. Officers at stations calling out reports, tactical displays showing the surrounding space, communications flowing in multiple languages. And in the center, standing before the main view screen, was Captain Sunhee. She turned as they entered. Up close, Mireille could see the exhaustion in her face, the weight she carried. But her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and kind. She greeted them with a small bow, the Korean gesture of respect, then gestured to a conference room off the main bridge. "We have much to discuss, and not much time." Inside the conference room, they sat around a table. Sunhee brought up a holographic display that showed star systems, ship movements, and something else. Red markers spreading across the map like a plague. Mireille felt her stomach tighten just looking at it. 3 years ago, Sunhee began without preamble. Humanity made first contact. But not with you. Not with the Galactic Council. We made contact with an extragalactic force we call the Devourers. She manipulated the display, showing images. Ships that looked organic, wrong, like metal and flesh fused together. Planets stripped bare, their surfaces gray and lifeless. Cities reduced to dust. They arrived in our home system without warning. No communication. No negotiation. They simply began harvesting. Our moon was their first target, stripped for resources in a matter of days. When we tried to defend it, when we tried to communicate, they ignored us. We were insects to them. Resources to be collected. Heian leaned forward, his feathers ruffling in agitation. "How did you survive? How did you drive them back?" Sunhee's laugh was bitter. "We did not drive them back, Commander. We held them at Earth for 6 months. Every ship we had, every weapon, every soldier. We fought them in orbit, on the moon, in the asteroid belt. We learned how to hurt them, how to slow them down, but we could not stop them. The mathematics were simple. They had more ships, more resources, more of everything. Earth would fall. It was only a matter of time." She paused, her hand trembling slightly before she steadied it. "So we evacuated. 30 billion humans became 3 billion refugees. We loaded every ship we could build, every transport, every vessel that could make the journey. Military ships became shields, protecting the colony ships as they fled. We scattered across 400 light-years, running, hiding, trying to find somewhere safe. Ginho spoke quietly. The human fleet. The one everyone thought was small was never small, Sunny confirmed. It was hidden, split into battle groups protecting the Exodus. The Taizhou is part of the 5th Fleet. We range ahead of the colony ships, clear threats, scout safe passage. We have been fighting a running battle across 400 light-years, and the Devourers follow. Always following, Myray found her voice. Why did you come for us? Why risk your fleet for one station? You have your own people to protect. Sunhee met her eyes. The answer came simple and devastating. Because no one helped us. Because we screamed into the void and heard nothing back. We sent distress signals for 6 months while Earth burned. The Galactic Council received them. They debated. They formed committees. They decided humanity was too far away, too unknown, too risky to help. So we died alone. She stood, pacing to the window that looked out at the stars. If humanity is going to survive in this galaxy, we need to be the kind of species that shows up when others cannot. We need to be what we wished someone had been for us. So when we detected your distress signal, when we saw the Krethic siege, there was no debate. We came. We will always come. The room was silent. Myray felt tears on her face and did not bother to wipe them away. Commander Heian sat very still, his military composure cracking to show the grief beneath. Earth, he asked quietly. Your home world. We do not know, Sanhee admitted. The last ships to leave reported the Devourers beginning orbital bombardment. That was 3 years ago. We have had no contact since. Earth may still stand. It may be rubble. We do not know. And not knowing is its own special torture. She turned back to them, her expression hardening. But that is not why I called you here. The Devourer scout ship we destroyed before engaging the Krethic. It was not alone. It transmitted everything it saw before we killed it. The battle, our ships, your station. Now the Hive knows there are more populated systems in this region. And unlike the Krethic, the Devourers do not conquer. They do not enslave. They consume everything. Hune stood abruptly. We must warn the Althean fleet. The Galactic Council. It will, son, he said. But I need you to understand what you are dealing with. The Devourers are not like any enemy you have faced. They do not fear death. They do not retreat. They do not negotiate. They are a hive mind. Every ship connected, every decision instant. You cannot surprise them. You cannot outthink them. You can only outfight them. And that requires adapting, learning, changing everything you know about warfare. She brought up new images on the display. Human tactics, weapon designs, battle formations. We've been studying them for 3 years. Every fight, every encounter, we learn more. We know their weak points, their adaptation patterns, their behaviors. This knowledge is the only reason we are still alive, and I am offering to share it. All of it. Every tactical file, every biological scan, every piece of intelligence we have gathered. What do you want in return? Hune asked carefully. Sanctuary, son, he said simply. Recognition from the Galactic Council that humanity's refugee crisis is real, that our colony ships need places to settle, to rest, to rebuild. We are not asking for charity. We will work, we will contribute, we will defend any who need it. But we need the galaxy to see us as people, not as a problem to be ignored. Myray spoke up. The survivors from Valara Station, you said everyone comes with you. What if some want to return to Althean space? Then we escort them safely, Sunhee replied. This is not imprisonment. But I will tell you honestly, Doctor. The Devourers know where Valara Station is now. That entire region is compromised. Staying there is choosing to be a target. Coming with us means joining humanity's journey. It means working together, fighting together if necessary, surviving together. It is not an easy choice, but it is a choice I am offering freely. A chime sounded. An officer's voice came over the intercom. Captain Admiral Korith of the Althean fleet is requesting communication. His fleet has just arrived in system. Sun He's expression tightened. 3 weeks late. How convenient. She looked at Heian. Commander, your fleet has arrived. I assume Admiral Korath will want his people back. You should be part of this conversation. They returned to the bridge. The main view screen showed for Althean cruisers and a carrier emerging from slipspace. Their weapons powered up, scanning the system. When they saw the Taijo, the Krethik Rex, and Valara Station's damaged hull, their confusion was evident in their communications. Admiral Korath's face appeared on screen. He was older, Althean, his feathers silver with age, his eyes sharp. Valara Station, says Admiral Korath of the Althean Defense Fleet. We received your distress calls and have come to render assistance. Report your status immediately. Sunny stepped forward. Admiral, this is Captain Sun He of the human merchant navy vessel Taijo. Valara Station is secure. The Krethik threat has been neutralized. Station personnel are currently aboard my ship receiving medical treatment. Korath's eyes narrowed. Human, the report said. Your fleet consisted of patrol craft. That vessel is a Dreadnought-class warship. Explain how humans possess such technology. We built it, Sun He said flatly. We built 23 of them to defend Earth. 12 survived the evacuation. As for our capabilities, I believe the Krethik wreckage speaks for itself, I see. Korath's tone was cold. Nevertheless, Valara Station is Althean territory. I must insist that all personnel be transferred to Althean custody immediately. Sun He's expression did not change. They can choose freely, Admiral. Unlike you, we do not abandon our people and then claim authority when the danger is past. The temperature on the bridge seemed to drop. Korath's feathers ruffled in anger. I dare speak truth, Sun He interrupted. Valara Station sent distress signals for 3 weeks. 3 weeks they fought alone. 3 weeks they waited for help that did not come. Humans crossed 40 light years in 12 days to reach them. Where were you, Admiral? The standoff had begun. The tension between the two ships could have been cut with a knife. Admiral Korath stared at Captain Sun He through the view screen, his silver feathers bristling with barely contained anger. Behind him, his bridge crew worked quietly, aware that their admiral's honor had been challenged publicly. Captain Sun He, Korath said, his voice carefully controlled, I understand you believe you acted righteously. However, military priorities dictated our deployment schedule. Resources had to be allocated to protect core worlds, supply lines, strategic positions. Valara Station, while important, was deemed expendable. Sun He finished for him. The word you are looking for is expendable. 847 souls deemed not worth the fuel costs to save. Heian stood between them, literally and figuratively caught in the middle. He was Althean, sworn to serve his people, trained to respect the chain of command. But he had also lived through 3 weeks of hell, watched his people die while waiting for help that came too late. The humans had saved them. The humans had bled for them. That meant something. Admiral Heian said carefully, Captain Sunny's words are harsh, but not entirely unfair. We did wait 3 weeks. Many died who might have lived if aid had come sooner. The humans arrived and fought without hesitation. I cannot ignore that fact. Korath's expression softened slightly when he looked at Heian. Commander, I understand your gratitude. But you must see the larger picture. We are at war on multiple fronts. Every ship, every resource must be carefully managed. The decision was not made lightly. I am sure it was not, Sun He said, her tone slightly less sharp. And I am not here to judge Althean military doctrine, but the survivors from Valara Station deserve a choice. Stay with your fleet or come with ours. Let them decide freely. Before Korath could respond, another voice cut into the channel. It was being broadcast station-wide. It was transmitted from the Taijo's communications array so everyone could hear. Dr. Moray's voice, clear and strong. My name is Dr. Moray. I am human. I've lived on Valara Station for 6 months. I have friends from 12 different species. I have laughed with them, worked with them, feared with them. 3 weeks ago, we sent out distress calls. We were dying. We were abandoned. She paused. When she spoke again, Her voice was thick with emotion. Then humanity came. They did not have to. They have their own crisis, their own people to protect, but they came anyway. They fought for us. Human pilots died protecting this station. Captain Sunny's ship took damage that will take months to repair. They ask for nothing in return. Nothing. Just the chance to help. Another pause. Admiral Korath has finally arrived. I thank him for that. But I have made my choice. I am traveling with the human fleet. I am offering my services as a xenobiologist to help humanity survive, to help them fight the Devourers. Because if we do not stand together now, if we do not help those who helped us, then what are we? What is civilization worth if we only protect our own? The transmission ended. Silence filled both bridges. Then more voices began transmitting. Survivors from Valara Station, one by one, making their choices public. Ginho announced he was going with the humans. A Thelian engineer said the same. A family of Kulari researchers. A Vreth medical technician. More and more voices, a cascade of decisions. Some chose to return to Althean space, seeking the safety of familiar territory. But many, over 200 souls, chose to join humanity's journey. Korath watched his view screen as the numbers came in. He could order them to return. He had that authority. But doing so would make him the villain of this story, the admiral who forced people to abandon their rescuers. His political instincts, honed over decades, told him that would be a disaster. Very well, he said finally. Those who wish to go with the human fleet may do so freely. But Captain Sunhee, I request a private meeting. There are matters we must discuss beyond pride and politics. Sunhee nodded, agreed. You may dock with the Taijo. I will receive you in 1 hour. The channel closed. Sunhee turned to her crew. Prepare conference room 2. Full intelligence briefing materials on the Devourers. If Korath is willing to listen, we will share everything. Myray found Sunhee in the corridor, outside the bridge, 30 minutes later. The captain was reviewing reports on a datapad, her expression tired. She looked up as Myray approached. Thank you for what you said, Sunhee told her. It was brave. It was true, Myray replied. Captain, I need to know. The other humans on the station? Are they coming too? All 4 of you chose to stay, Sunhee said softly. You, Jinho, and the 2 others. I am glad. We need scientists like you. We need hope like you bring, my brother Myray said suddenly. He served on a human cruiser, the HMNV Gwangju. It was lost covering a colony ship escaped 2 years ago. Did you know him? Lieutenant Myray Doyan. Sunhee's expression shifted, grief crossing her features. I knew of the Gwangju. They saved 40,000 lives that day. Held off 3 Devourer frigates while the transport jumped to safety. They were heroes, all of them. I am sorry for your loss. Myray nodded, tears in her eyes. He always said humans should be the good guys. That if we were going to survive in space, we had to be worth surviving. I think you are proving him right. Admiral Korath arrived exactly on time. Bringing to aids in Commander Heian, they met in the conference room. Sitting around the same table where Sunhee had explained the Devourer threat hours earlier, the holographic display was already prepared, showing everything humanity knew about their enemy. Korath listened in silence as Sunhee walked through the intelligence. Biological scans of Devourer organisms. Tactical analysis of their ship movements. Weapon effectiveness studies. Adaptation patterns. Weaknesses humanity had discovered through painful trial and error. It was 3 years of desperate learning compressed into 1 hour. When she finished, Korath sat back. His expression had changed from anger to something else. Respect, fear, understanding. This is worse than I imagined, he admitted. If what you say is true, if these Devourers are expanding into our region of space, the entire Galactic Council faces an existential threat. It is true, Sunhee said flatly, and they are coming. The scout ship that was here transmitted its findings. The Hive now knows about Valara Station, about this region, about all of you. They will send more ships, not scouts next time. harvesters, war fleets. What do you propose? Alliance Sun He said simply. Share this intelligence with the Galactic Council. Convince them that humanity's refugee crisis is real and that our fight is their fight. Grant us sanctuary rights. In return, we offer military cooperation, tactical training, everything we have learned about fighting the Devourers. Korath considered this. I cannot make that decision alone. The Council will need to vote. But I can testify to what I have seen here. I can advocate for your position. After what your ship did, after the lives you saved, I owe you that much. Thank you, Admiral. Do not thank me yet, Korath warned. The Council is slow, bureaucratic, afraid of change. Convincing them will take time. Time is something we do not have much of, Sun He replied, but we will work with what we have. The meeting was ending when alarms suddenly blared throughout the ship. Red lights flashed. An officer's voice came over the intercom, urgent and sharp. Captain to the bridge. Multiple slip space signatures inbound. Unknown configuration. Everyone ran. The bridge was organized chaos when they arrived. Tactical displays showed 3 new contacts emerging from slip space at the edge of the system. The sensor readings were wrong. Organic. Mechanical. Both and neither. Devourer signatures confirmed, the tactical officer reported. 3 frigate-class vessels. 1 larger contact behind them? Analyzing now. The larger contact finished its emergence. A harvester ship. Designed to strip installations like Valara Station 4 biomass and raw materials. It was massive, ugly, covered in what looked like mechanical tentacles and organic tissue fused together. They ignored the Althean fleet completely. Their course was set directly for Valara Station. Sun He's orders were instant. Battle stations. Helm, intercept course. Communications, alert the Althean fleet. On the Althean channel, Admiral Korath was already issuing commands. All ships engage the enemy. Protect Valara Station. For the first time in galactic history, human and Althean ships moved as one toward a common enemy. The Taijo's engines flared bright, accelerating toward the Devourer ships. Behind them, 4 Althean cruisers and a carrier followed. Weapons-charging Dotasians stood on the Taijo's bridge, watching the tactical display. He had seen the humans fight the Krethic. Now he would see them fight the true enemy. The enemy that had destroyed Earth. The enemy that consumed worlds, as the range closed and weapons came online. He found himself praying to gods he had not spoken to in years. Praying that humanity's fire would be enough. Praying that this alliance forming in battle would hold. Praying that they would all survive what came next. Devourers opened fire. The Devourer. Weapons were nothing like what the Althean fleet had. Encountered before? Organic projectiles that writhed through space like living things. Energy beams that seemed to bend reality around them. The first volley struck an Althean cruiser's shields and did not simply drain them, but corrupted them, making the defensive field turn against itself and collapse. The cruiser. The Windcaller took direct hits to its hull. Armor melted. Bulkheads breached. The ship was designed for conventional warfare against conventional enemies. The Devourers were neither. Captain Sun He watched the tactical display with cold calculation. She had fought these things for 3 years. She knew their patterns, their tactics, their terrifying ability to adapt. The Altheans were about to learn what humanity had learned the hard way. Target the frigate on the left, she commanded. Full spread, concentrated fire. Don't give them time to adapt to our weapons. The Taijo's batteries opened up. Rail cannons, plasma lances, missile pods, everything firing in coordinated sequence. The Devourer frigate's shields flickered under the assault. Good. Humanity had learned that overwhelming firepower applied quickly worked better than sustained fire. Hit hard, hit fast, move on. But the Althean fleet was fighting the old way. Sustained beam weapons, careful targeting, conservation of ammunition. Their cruiser Bright Star locked onto a Devourer frigate and poured fire into it steadily. The Devourer shields adapted, changed frequency, started reflecting the energy back. Bright Star's own weapons became a threat to itself. Admiral Korath, Sun He called across the command channel. Rotate your firing patterns. Don't give them consistent targets. They adapt to sustained assault. To his credit, Korath adjusted immediately. The Althean ships shifted tactics, switching between weapon types, varying their approach vectors. It was rough, uncoordinated, but better than before. They were learning. Fast. The Taizhou closed with the leftmost Devourer frigate. Point defense systems shredded incoming bioprojectiles. The ship rolled, presenting its heaviest armor to return fire, then unleashed a full spread of plasma lances. The Devourer frigate's shields collapsed. The hull beneath was tough, regenerating but not fast enough. The frigate broke apart, its organic components spasming as they died. One down. 2 frigates and a harvester to go. The harvester was moving toward Valara Station, its mechanical tentacles extending even at this distance. It was already calculating, measuring, preparing to strip the station for resources. That could not happen. Too many civilians remained on the station, evacuees waiting for transport. Helm, intercept the harvester, Sun He ordered. We need to keep it away from the station. But the 2 remaining Devourer frigates had other ideas. They moved to block the Taizhou, coordinating with each other in perfect synchronization. The hive mind at work. One ship's sensors feeding into another's targeting. No communication lag. No hesitation. Just instant tactical cooperation. The Althean carrier launched fighters. Small, nimble craft that swarmed the Devourer frigates. The bioships responded with point defense that was both mechanical and organic. Tentacles whipping out to grab fighters, acid sprays dissolving hulls. It was nightmare warfare. But the Althean pilots were brave, pressing attacks even as their numbers thinned. Then Windcaller, the damaged Althean cruiser, made a choice. Its captain saw the Taizhou being boxed in, saw the harvester closing on Valara Station, saw what needed to be done. The cruiser's engines flared to maximum. It accelerated directly toward the harvester, every weapon firing. Sacrificing defense for one final attack run, the harvester's tentacles reached out, trying to grab the cruiser, to hold it, to begin harvesting the ship itself. But Windcaller's captain had already made peace with his decision. The reactor was set to overload. The ship slammed into the harvester at full velocity. Both ships became a brief sun in the darkness. On the Taizhou's bridge, everyone stood in silence for a heartbeat. Hyan's feathers were flat against his body, a sign of grief in his species. Those were his people, his fleet, his sacrifice. But there was no time to mourn. The 2 remaining Devourer frigates were closing, and the Taizhou was taking heavy fire. Shields were at 40% and dropping. Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. Casualties mounting. Sun He called down to engineering. How much can you give me? The voice that responded was Jin Ho's. He had been assigned to the engineering teams, working alongside humans he barely knew, learning their systems. Captain, we can reroute power from life support on damaged sections. By you, maybe 10% more shield strength, but we have fires on deck 7. If we do not contain them, do it, Sun He ordered. 10% might be the difference. The Althean cruiser Bright Star moved to support, positioning itself between the Taizhou and one of the frigates. Admiral Korath's voice came over the channel. Captain Sun He, we have your flank. Focus on the remaining target. For the next 10 minutes, it was brutal, grinding warfare. The kind that destroyed ships and killed crews. The kind that humanity had learned to endure because there was no other choice. The Taizhou's crew worked with mechanical precision. Damage control teams racing through corridors, medical bays overwhelmed with wounded, weapons crews loading and firing and loading again. Marae found herself in the medical bay, helping where she could. She had basic medical training, enough to assist the human doctors. A young pilot was brought in, her flight suit torn, burns covering her arms. Marae held her hand while the doctor worked, speaking softly in Korean, words she had learned from Jinho. The pilot smiled despite the pain. Did I get him? The pilot asked. The frigate. Did I hit the weak spot? You did? The doctor lied kindly. Marae said nothing. The pilot had missed, but it did not matter. She had tried. She had been brave. On the bridge, the tactical situation was shifting. The Devourer frigates were adapting to everything thrown at them, but they were also taking damage. Regeneration could not keep up with the combined assault. The Taijo and Brightstar worked in coordination now, each covering the other's weaknesses, learning to fight as a unit rather than individuals. Then the Taijo's sensors picked up something new. Slip space signatures. Multiple contacts. Big ones, Captain. The sensor officer called out. New contacts. Human signature. 2 massive shapes tore out of slip space. 2 more dreadnoughts, identical to the Taijo, the HMNV Sajong and the HMNV Guangzhou. The 5th Fleet had arrived. Both ships opened fire immediately. Their weapons had been charging during the slip space jump, ready for immediate engagement. A Devourer frigate, caught in a crossfire from 3 dreadnoughts, did not survive long. It came apart in sections, organic components dying, mechanical parts shorting out in sprays of sparks. The last frigate tried to run. The Sejong's captain, a man named Daeho, did not let it. His ship accelerated in pursuit, firing the entire way. When the frigate finally died, it was 300,000 kilometers from where the battle had started. Silence fell across the fleet. The Devourers were dead. Valara Station was safe. Survivors looked at each other, seeing the same exhaustion, the same relief, the same grief for those who had not made it. The cost had been heavy. Windcaller was gone, taking its crew of 200 with it. Another Althean cruiser was crippled, reactors offline, life support failing. The Taijo had lost 8 and 9 crew members, with 200 more wounded. Brightstar had taken severe damage but would survive, and Valara Station's outer ring was destroyed. The section where research labs had been, where Murray had studied exotic microbes that now drifted in space. Specimens lost forever. But they had one. Admiral Korath's face appeared on the view screen. He looked old now, aged by the battle, by the losses, but his eyes were clear. Captain Sun-hee, he said formally, you have my gratitude and my apology. I thought I understood warfare. I thought I understood threat assessment. I was wrong. The Devourers are everything you said and worse. Without your fleet, without your tactics, we would all be dead. Sun-hee nodded. Admiral, I will be honest. We got lucky. The Harvester was not a military vessel. The frigates were scouts, not warships. When the real Devourer fleet arrives, when they send battleships and carriers, this will seem like a training exercise. We need to prepare. We need to warn the galaxy. I will testify before the Galactic Council, Korath promised. I will tell them everything I have seen. I will advocate for alliance with humanity, for sanctuary rights, for military cooperation. You have my word as an officer and as someone who now understands what you have been fighting. Thank you, Admiral. That is all we ask. The recovery operations began. Shuttles moved between ships, evacuating the wounded, transferring supplies, beginning the long work of repair. The survivors from Valara Station were distributed among the 3 human dreadnoughts, given quarters and assignments. Gin-ho became an engineering liaison. Murray joined the Taijo's research division. 200 other survivors from various species found roles, found purpose, found a place in humanity's fleet. They were not refugees anymore. They were volunteers. They were allies. Commander Hayan chose to return to Althean space with Korath. It was a painful decision, but necessary. Someone needed to speak to the Althean government, to explain what had happened, to push for action. He said goodbye to Murray on the Taijo's docking bay, both of them knowing they might never meet again. You are braver than most soldiers I have known, Hyun told her. Make sure the galaxy knows what humanity did here, Murray replied. Make sure they understand. I will. I promise you that. 6 hours after the battle ended, the 3 human dreadnoughts and 2 Althean cruisers prepared to part ways. The humans were heading to a rendezvous point where colony ships waited. The Altheans were returning to their core worlds to report and rebuild. In the Taijo's Memorial Hall, Ray stood with Jin-Ho and other volunteers from different species. The hall was a quiet place, walls inscribed with names in light. Every human who had died in the 3-year exodus. Thousands of names, tens of thousands. The price humanity had paid to survive. At the center of the hall was a star chart showing Earth's last known coordinates. Murray stared at it, wondering if the planet still existed. If anything remained of the world where she had studied, laughed, lived. "We will see it again," she said softly. "All of us. We will stand on Earth and breathe its air." Kin-Ho put a hand on her shoulder. "Because humanity does not surrender." Now, Murray added, looking at the other volunteers around her, species she had just met, people who had chosen to stand with humanity. "Neither do we." Outside the viewports, the fleet aligned for jump. The massive slip space drives charged, tearing holes in reality, preparing to leap across the stars, toward hope, toward survival, toward a future uncertain but not yet lost. Captain Sun-hee sat in her command chair, watching her crew work, seeing the volunteers integrate, feeling the weight of responsibility and the warmth of hope mixed together in her chest. She had saved Valara Station. She had made allies. She had proven that humanity still had something to offer this dark galaxy. She opened a channel to record a message, one that would be transmitted back toward Earth, toward home, toward a world that might no longer exist but lived forever in human hearts. "This is Captain Sun-hee of the HMNV Taijo. We fought at Valara Station. We saved lives. We made allies. We showed the galaxy who humanity is, who we choose to be. We left Earth, but we did not leave ourselves. We are still human. We still stand for those who cannot, and we are coming back. Someday, somehow, we are taking our home back. This I promise. This I swear. We will return." The fleet jumped. In the space where they had been, only cooling debris and fading radiation remained. Evidence of battle, proof of survival, promise of return. In the void between stars, where once there was only darkness and silence, now there was something else. A howl, not of despair, but of defiance. The sound of humanity refusing to die quietly. The sound of hope in the darkness. The sound of a species that had lost everything but would not surrender, would not break, would not go gently into extinction. The devourers would come again. The war would continue. The galaxy would face its darkest hour. But humanity was here now, and they had brought fire.